Okay, time for a video update. The sandy beard is gone. Just gives me a few more days to, I guess, grow another one as we continue to track this remarkable storm. It really is going to be something potentially historic along the eastern seaboard, particularly in the Northeast and up here into southern New England. So Sandy is weakened a little bit, impacted by some wind shear this morning, down to 75 miles per hour, moving north at about 7 as of 2 o'clock this afternoon. Sandy's already a large storm. It is expected to get even larger, and as it moves to the north and the northeast, then eventually to the northwest and into the northeastern United States coastline. This is a unique scenario. These are the top analogs for Sandy, and you see none really that have a landfall where Sandy is projected to make landfall. You have Carol in this mix here that came up more from the southwest to the northeast, or south-southwest to north-northeast, but Sandy is expected to approach from the southeast to the northwest and move in this direction at some point early next week, maybe Monday night or early Tuesday. Still seeing the spaghetti plot with a pretty wide range of solutions. The official Hurricane Center track is here in the black, and that'll likely be shifting to the north based on some of the newer information that's coming in, like from this European model, which has changed considerably, really, from where it was at this point yesterday, at least as far as how far it's going to swing it out into the Atlantic before bringing it in. It's just a little bit farther north than it was yesterday at this time with its landfall. We'll see that in a second. First of all, these computer model maps that I'm showing you come from the weatherbell.com website subscription site, and it's a great one if you're interested in looking at computer models and getting some good weather analysis. So I just want to point that out there. I'm a subscriber, and I really do like the look of these maps and the information that you get from them. So this was the European model that just came in this afternoon, and it's got a 949 millibar, 950 millibar storm out there in the Atlantic east of Cape Hatteras. This is Monday morning at 8 o'clock. Huge wind field with the storm. All of this out here really showing the strong winds. These are 850 millibar wind speeds, and you can see that they are up to about 60 knots, stretching for hundreds of miles from the center of the storm. Okay, so Sandy's the newest run here. This is the newest run from Sandy, and it takes the storm inland, there you see it, right around Atlantic City, New Jersey. So at about 940 millibars, and that is on early Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. The prior run that we're looking at right now from yesterday at the same time had the storm closer to the coastline as it moved up from the north and then moving in much farther south, actually, into the Chesapeake Bay. So that European model, which has been very consistent, has shifted now to the north, not by a huge amount, but by enough to bring it more in line with the American model. This is the GFS model, and this is this morning's run, which has really a horrific track for the northeastern United States. And as this storm interacts with the jet stream that is going to be pulling it back into the coastline, it is just the perfect scenario for incredible amounts of energy to be fed into this storm. So even as it's becoming something that's not purely tropical, it still will be getting a lot of energy. It's going to spend a lot of time over the Gulf Stream, which has some very warm water, even at this time of the year. And then because of the way that it's approaching the coast, it's not going to spend a lot of time over the cooler water that is along the coastline. There's a lot of cooler water in here that hugs the coast, and many times when these storms move up from the northwest to from the southwest to the northeast, they end up riding over that cooler water and interacting with the land. This one's going to take the short road from the Gulf Stream across that cooler water in a northwesterly direction and then into the land. So it really has the potential to be a very destructive situation for the Northeast and here in southern New England. Now, this is that GFS model, bringing the storm very close, the center of it, to Rhode Island. This is actually farther north than even that cone of uncertainty that you see from the National Hurricane Center. So this was probably going to end up being a little bit too far north with the ultimate landfall of Sandy. Then it swirls it around a little bit around New York City and lifts it farther to the north. One of the things that we should be focusing in on, though, with this storm is not necessarily exactly where it makes landfall. Is it Ocean City, Maryland, or Atlantic City, New Jersey, or up to New York City, or the eastern part of Long Island, or even Block Island or Nantucket? That is always important, but with a storm this size, it's less important, as the wind field with this storm is going to be so big that it is now pretty much a certainty that we're going to see at least tropical storm force winds here in southern New England. This is the HWRF model that ran this morning, and what I want to show you here in this particular one also has a track very close to Atlantic City, New Jersey. Has a really intense storm. I mean, 926 millibars. If it's not, that is mind-blowing. That is so incredibly low. If it were 946, that would be close to setting some records for Northeast hurricanes and for certainly for storms at this time of the year. So 926 off the charts low. I don't think it ends up getting quite that low, but even if that is off by some 25 millibars, you're still talking about a really massively intense storm that is going to be heading our way. And again, it has that huge wind field, which you can see even here from the GFDL model, okay? Now, this particular model, the green wind, the green shading that you see in there, that's going to be your tropical storm force winds. And then once you get into the yellowish shading, that's your sustained hurricane force winds. These are sustained winds, okay? And this particular model actually takes the storm in closer to the Chesapeake Bay. And you'll notice some winds in here that are projected to be about 85 knots, so about 100 miles per hour. And way far to the north, up here in southern New England, we see a lot of that green shading moving in, and that is sustained tropical storm force winds with the center of the storm way down there to the south over the Chesapeake Bay. So regardless of the storm track, we are looking at tropical storm force winds at a minimum here in southern New England. So these were some graphics I showed on the site earlier. Southern New England impacts based on these different landfall projections. This scenario between about Delaware Bay and the North Carolina-Virginia border, which was the southern end of the cone earlier today. Now a lot of the computer models are actually coming in a little bit farther north. This has the storm farthest away from southern New England, still 45 to 65 mile per hour winds near the coast of southern New England, 30 to 50 inland with scattered power outages, huge waves, huge surf, a significant coastal flood threat even if the storm tracks this far south, astronomical high tides. In Rhode Island, they're in the mid-morning and the mid-evening on Monday and Tuesday. And so this is the scenario, 8 to 12 foot seas at the beach, surf at the beaches, 20 to 30 foot waves offshore. That's some big time stuff we're talking about, and that's with the storm that's about 350, 400 or so miles southwest of Block Island. 1 to 3 inches of rain, not a lot of rain with this track, with some heavy showers, but no river flooding threat, and the rain not really we're not really near the core of the rain. The heavier rain in this track would be a little bit farther, definitely down over the mid-Atlantic states. Okay, so landfall that happens between Plum Island, New Jersey, down to about Delaware Bay. So basically along the Jersey shore. In southern New England, I think we'd be looking at 55 to 75 mile per hour winds near the coastline, 40 to 60 mile per hour winds inland, stronger winds, I think, than what we saw with Irene, widespread power outages throughout Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts and Connecticut for that matter. Similar to Irene, maybe even worse than Irene, and more wave and surf action than we saw, more coastal erosion, beach erosion, more coastal flooding, a major coastal flood threat if the storm takes this track, 20 to 35 foot waves offshore, and astronomical high tides, as I mentioned earlier, 2 to 4 inches of rain, some minor flooding on some streams possible. I don't think the big rivers would flood with that amount of rainfall, but they would probably swell a little bit if we did get up to 4 inches of rain. With this track, probably closer to 2 inches, just the potential is there for 4. Now, what if it's a track even farther to the north, say from about Southampton, New York, will go all the way to the Twin Forks, really, and then to Plum Island, New Jersey. This is still in the realm of possibility. This is the worst-case scenario for southern New England. 60 to 90 mile per hour winds near the coastline, 50 to hurricane force winds as you get farther inland. Power outages across the board for Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. 10 to 20 foot waves at the beach. The worst coastal flood threat that I have ever seen, if this is the track, and the worst coastal flooding that we've seen in probably decades. If this track holds true as if this storm comes in as a Category 1 hurricane from this angle onto somewhere along Long Island to the extreme northern part of New Jersey, then then you're likely looking at the worst hurricane to hit southern New England since Carol in 1954. So you'd have to go back a long ways to find anything that would compare to what Sandy could bring our way. 2 to 6 inches of rain. The heavier rain would be to the west in Connecticut, western Massachusetts, and that would lead to some minor stream and river flooding. So still a long ways to go. Definitely start preparing, though, for this storm. Get out there. Make sure you have some non-perishables. Make sure you have batteries. Make sure you're cleaning up the yard, taking care of things. Pull the boat. If the boat's in the water, I would absolutely get the boat out of the water, regardless of the storm track. If it ends up in Atlantic City, you still don't want your boat in the water in a situation like this because of the huge wave potential that is coming with this really big storm. I'll continue to have updates on rightweather.net. You can check out the live blog through the rest of today. Over the weekend, that will become a Right Weather Pro subscribers only feature of this website. It's a $40 per year subscription, so it's a really inexpensive subscription, and you're going to get the coverage, obviously, during the storms, but you will also get the long-range forecast, in which we told you a couple of weeks ago to watch the Western Caribbean for tropical development. We also told you that there was the potential, we told you in the middle of last week, that there was the potential for a storm around Halloween. So we can get some good information from that long-range forecast, seasonal forecast, custom forecast, a lot more. It's all $40 a year, and you can sign up right on rightweather.net. Again, that live blog becomes a subscribers-only feature starting over the weekend.